everybody. I'm Aline, and I'm the Global Circular Packaging Director at AB-InBev. At AB-InBev, we are committed to eliminate waste. And we plan to do that, guaranteeing that 100% of our packaging is either returnable or made of majority recycled content. I've been at AB-InBev for the past 13 years, passing through different areas from supply, innovation, procurement, and now in sustainability. And I'm very proud to see that circular packaging is definitely part of our business and makes business sense, more importantly. So we have across our business more than 40% of our volumes being sold either in returnable glass bottles, the ones that you can refill, or in kegs. And beyond that, we also want to champion recycling and to be sure that we are able to use these recyclable materials into our packaging, guaranteeing that majority of our packaging is actually made of recycled content. And to be able to continue championing returnables and to be able to increase recycled content, we have set up some strategies that I think we can discuss a little bit further here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I will just add a quick side note. Your CEO, Carlos, I believe his name is, he was on our meeting and was on which is great, on the webinar over the summer. And he was on for about an hour. And I thought, wow, these guys from the top really want to make a difference. And we really appreciate the work that you're doing. He's
personally involved, I can tell you.
Yeah, wonderful. Daniel, how are you over there, Daniel?
The sun is out, the fog is lifted, it's all good out here in California.
Good. Yeah, my name is Daniel Robin. Background about yourself before I'm going to roll out the red carpet a little bit. Daniel's been helping me on the impact investing side, and Companies for Zero Waste is migrating now with different segments. And one of the most important segments is obviously getting capital into a lot of the projects that are coming in. And Daniel's been really helping me with learning about those two components coming together. So I just wanted to, introduce you and give us a little background about yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks for everybody for doing these events. This is amazing. This community that keeps growing and growing. My perception is, and we'll talk a little more, you'll hear from me toward the end. Scott and I will try to wrap up today's festivities. I've been in business for about 25 years, raising funds for companies, and more recently we've shifted to primarily project finance, advancing the circular, sustainable, clean economy. Project finance is about scale, getting to the scale that's necessary to really move the needle on carbon emissions, plastics waste, etc., to really get it done. You know, we can talk about it all day long, but really it's the behavior, the results, and the scale that we must reach to change it, rather than talking about it for several more decades, because we probably don't have several more decades. I'm excited about working with you, Aline, because we have something in common. I'm a biomaterials geek. I am a nerd when it comes to things that are bio. Put the word bio in front of it. Yeah, that's something I'm very excited about, and I've learned a lot over the years chairing conferences on early stuff on biopolymers and so forth. And I'm going to try to draw out a couple of distinctions today after we understand in some glorious detail, I hope, what AB-InBev is actually up to. And so we could take it there if you like. Scott, is it? Can we just jump into the conversation here?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
Thank you.
Fantastic. So to kick this off, I think I'd like to know a bit more about AB-InBev. I understand pretty large organization by now, right? I'm looking at my notes here. I can see, let's see, your headquarters is New York City, but you've got regional headquarters in Sao Paulo, London, St. Louis, Mexico City, Bremen, Johannesburg. Can you talk to us just for a moment about some of your operations?
Yes. So thank you so much. We are a global company, but actually we operate, sell, source, and produce locally our products. So we are across more than 50 different countries producing our beers and sourcing things to produce our beers, right? So from our raw materials, our packaging materials, services and etc. to be able to really produce and supply our beers across the globe. It is interesting that when we were setting up our 2025 sustainability goals, we were actually keeping this in mind, this local impact that we have in our supply chain. And we wanted to assure that we are going to develop better this local supply chain and build resilience in these places. So we are across, as you mentioned, Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Zambia, South Africa, China, Vietnam, all Europe. So we are really across everywhere. And we wanted to be sure that when these goals were being written, they would make sense for all these different geographies as well. So we set up these different goals in for agro, for water, for to build climate action, and then to have this circular packaging. So we were focusing in 4 main areas to assure that we were building this resilient supply chain.
Circular packaging, that's it, isn't it? Scott doesn't know this. He picked the right guy for this role. I grew up in Southern California, and I fondly remember visiting Busch Gardens. I don't know if it's still there, probably not, right? Who in this room knows that AB actually stands for Anheuser-Busch, right? And also, I happen to be married to a woman from Bavaria, where they tend to drink a lot of beer.
Wow.
And even here in California, yes, my wife is from Regensburg, Germany, and so we're into beer. I understand. I speak beer, not in every language, but okay. So let's get into a little bit about what AB InBev is up to in terms of their commitments, because there's a lot of scale here, a lot of impacts that come, positive or otherwise, from your company's actions. What are AB InBev's commitments to the circular economy, global economy?
Yeah, sure. So we want to assure that 100% of our packaging is either returnable or refillable, or made of majority recycled content. And we are using 4 main pillars to assure that we are going to get there. One, it is about innovation, packaging design and packaging innovation, that I think it's quite closer to your biomaterials discussion as well. The second one is about developing programs to enable this local supply chain to be developed, including recycling facilities, collection programs, etc. The third one is using our brands to assure that we are able to reach to our consumers and engage them in this journey and increase their awareness around the topic and the necessity of them changing the way they do things as well. And the fourth is about bringing this disruptive mindset into the business and bringing disruptive innovations as well into the business. And we are doing this through our accelerator program that we are now in the 2nd cohort. And on the 2nd cohort, we were able to work as well with one of our companies, the companies that joined us, is Eco Packers. They produce bioplastics out of agro waste. So they are helping us to develop this bioplastic for our plastic kegs in India. And we were able to successfully run two projects there this year, two pilots there this year. And we are now testing how it degrades in the garden, in the water, and etc. Because the promise is to enable anyone to compose their material in a regular garden, for example. So we are betting very much on that. Maybe you could tell us a little bit of what you've been seeing out there related to this topic as well.
Yeah, it's a subtle and important distinction, and some folks may not be familiar. If a material technically is made of the most common type of bioplastic, this is not cocktail party conversation, by the way. You don't walk up to somebody and whisper in their ear the key word, bioplastics. Okay, no, but that's not a good conversation starter. Who saw The Graduate? Never mind. Okay, bioplastics of two types: the ones that actually can be recycled out in nature, in your backyard, as you say, in your garden or wherever they end up, versus the rest. And historically, the biopolymer that's most widely available, widely distributed, and so much of it is made, is not backyard compostable. Companies for Zero Waste happens to know of a company that makes an additive, or actually it's post the production of this particular biopolymer that makes it backyard compostable. That company exists. I guess I won't mention their name, or Scott, is it okay to say?
Yeah, you can mention them. I didn't sign any type of NDA or any type of disclosure, so.
And they'll appreciate being mentioned. It's Carbiolise.
Yes.
I believe it's pronounced correct. Yes. They make an additive that turns the conventional PLA, polylactic acid, which is made usually from corn, right, from municipal compost only. To put a PLA in your backyard is essentially littering in your own backyard. Normal PLA will not fall apart per ASTM standards or European ones. But if you add something, Carbiolise makes this product, then it does. And that means if it escapes into waterways, ends up in the ocean, etc., it'll biodegrade into completely benign biomass. Very important to keep in mind that only bio-derived plastics, that is stuff made from plants, and I mean recently made plants, not, fossil carbon, right, actually biodegrades into anything that's compatible with life. The biomass that you get from petroleum plastics will eventually biodegrade. It's not actually a biomass, it's just a mass, right? Hydrocarbons. And so it's a technical point, but an important one. The plastic that can eventually end up from normal plastic bottles and so forth end up in the ocean, bad. And the bioplastics, if it's 100% biopolymer, it's fine. It's actually nutrients for wherever it ends up. And if it ends up ideally in a compost pile, that's the way to go. Then you're recapturing those nutrients and recycling them in our proverbial circular economy, and so that's actually a good thing. So you want to capture it. But consumer behavior, last point, if we as people don't stop polluting, littering, you better make sure your plastic bottle is compatible with life as we know it. Otherwise, we'll end up just with the same problem we've had all along, right? And so thank you for AB-InBev's behavior on this and innovations. I'm sure there's quite a few. I'd like to hear a little more about it. Packers that are making now bioplastics from agro waste. There's other kinds of bioplastics, and that might be, maybe you're not using PLA at all. PHA is the acronym for, I won't try to say the name of that molecule, but that's the acronym for a different kind of bioplastic that's naturally biodegradable, that is naturally backyard or garden compostable. And there's one thing to be aware of. There's a buzzword. You hear bio-based. I want to put this aside, and then we'll go back to Aline. Bio-based is the U.S. government's buzzword for a mix of hydrocarbon and carbohydrate plastic. It is, be very, very careful. It's better, arguably, if you know how to dispose of a bio-based product, if you know its end-of-life solution. It's better to have some bio component in there because you eliminate what would have been petroleum plastics, right? You decrease that, you decrease the energy, all the other things associated with petroleum. Okay, but the biomass is not bio in this classic sense in the way we've just defined it. You can't let that escape. That biomass isn't actually technically biomass at all. You can't make biochar with petroleum inputs. You can only make char. Okay, so it's a mix. It's a hybrid. It's really kind of dangerous and problematic. We've had debates about this at bioplastics conferences. You really can't let that stuff get into the environment. If it's bio-based, it's both recently fixed carbon and fossil carbon together. Does that make sense? Okay. So back to your innovations. Oh, and I want to say, I appreciate that you're using so much glass That's, you know, glass
Yes.
containers.
By the way, this is my biggest issue, right? And especially in US, where basically we do not have refillable solutions. This is different from other markets where we have a very huge park of refillables, and consumers are used with returning and refilling that, and you know they can reuse between 40 to 100 times before being broken again into cullet. So
Wow.
this is the perfect waste-free solution, I would say, together with kegs, that is even better than refillable bottles. But this would be what we should search for, right? So when I take a look at the amount of returnables that we are sponsoring selling right now, and how we have to continue championing that, innovation always also plays an important game there. And this year we pilot a refillable solution in California, actually, with conscious container. So it's very exciting for us for the first time to pilot back refillables in US after decades of not selling refillables in such a big market. It's one of the biggest markets of ABI.
I had a quick question, Daniel.
Go ahead, Scott.
I wanted to introduce Andrew Bernard. Andrew, are you over there?
Yep. Hello.
Andrew, yes, you had a quick question here. Sure, for both of you. Thank you.
I don't know if it was actually a question, more of a possibly a clarification for Daniel on the issue on biodegradability and compostability. You know, there's a lot of biodegradable products on the market that do degrade over time, but they don't disintegrate into virtually zero. In Europe, about 8 to 10 years ago, they came up with a certification program for compostability, which was to allow industrial composters the market confidence to take this product in, and they know if it was shredded to a certain particle size, heated to a certain temperature for a certain amount of time, it would degrade to a point where then their final products are compliant to be sold back into agriculture. So there is a fine distinction, I think, between home compostability and industrial compostability.
Yeah, there's a subtle terminology distinction that I want to make loud and clear here. The difference between biodegradable and just degradable. Those are the two words I was hinting at before, right? If it's 100% bio-based biomaterial in there, then it is in fact possible for it to be biodegradable. It has to meet a bunch of other conditions, as you pointed out, Andrew. But yes, biodegradable products are technically compostable. There's a lot of other pathways, including our first speaker today, where Gravitas Infinitum spoke about what is essentially a thermochemical pathway, or they actually have another technology. But thermochemical, like pyrolysis and so forth, it's rather different than composting, and it's a good alternative when you've got a mix of materials. But let's get back. Your question about, and I want to know more about Conscious Container, by the way, Alina, and what they're up to. But the compostability of a product is entirely determined by what's in there in the first place, right? And if it's recently fixed carbon and it's in fact a biodegradable material or biomaterial, not bio-based, watch that word, only the government in the United States understands it, okay? So forget that for now. Bio-based is meaningless to most other markets. And in Europe, where they continue to be pretty far ahead of us, the compostability of something is certified just as its biodegradability per a specific testing standard, right? It has to perform per that testing standard. It falls apart in 64 days, or never mind. It isn't technically compostable, right? So let's go back to AB-InBev. I hope, Andrew, did I get to your question?
Absolutely fine. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Let's go back to our discussion. Oh, and Alina, I want to share one thing. Since you and I picked red and green here, we got Christmas colors. I was just reminded. I was just reminded of something innovation-wise that's so simple. So innovations don't have to be these elaborate technological ordeals. Okay, it's fine when there are good technical innovations. Don't get me wrong. I'm not against it. But some innovations are so subtle and simple, and
Yes.
they make the most difference, right? And I was just remembering one in the Christmas markets in Germany. How do they avoid waste? When you go get your glass of Glühwein or your beer, you get a souvenir mug. You pay €2, right? And if you want to keep it, there's your €2 purchase of a souvenir. And if you don't, you give it back. You get your €2 as a deposit returned to you. Zero
That's
waste.
it. Super
It's so
simple
elegant.
innovation.
Exactly.
I fully agree with you. So this is what I wanted to mention. When we were discussing our innovation pipeline, we actually focus very much on reduction and elimination where possible. And we really need to rethink our packaging and understand if it is really necessary or not. But then the second step is really about reusable or refillable solutions. And this is what Conscious Container is helping us in US. And then we go for recycling. And just after that, if it is not possible to achieve these three first elements, then we go for something on compostability or biodegradable. This should be really the last option possible. And the first three, we kind of know very well. By the way, the first two, I think, is the core of the business, together with, so either reducing the amount of materials that we use. We've been doing this forever. We had the previous commitments to reduce packaging material usage, and we reduced it more than 100,000 tons of usage of packaging materials per year. Together with returnables, that we've been doing this forever. And it's very interesting when you say, doesn't need to be something really new or new technological, and that's correct. We treat returnables inside ABI, we call it back to the future, because it's just about doing whatever we've been doing forever. And we know that, right? It's just a matter of really engaging consumers and being sure that we are able to still have convenience, still have what they want in terms of SKUs, flavors, etc., in a new format where they can join us and really eliminate completely their waste. So these are the steps we think about when we are doing any type of innovation, indeed new SKUs. Of course, we always think about what the consumers are asking us right now, but indeed, returnables should be in the menu as well and should be an option. And I'm very glad to share the Conscious Container pilot right now, because I think this is the first time that we are in decades that we are bringing back again this option to consumers. And we are running right now the pilot and understanding really if consumers want to adhere into this new SKU and this new routine as well, and what would require us to grow in this area. So this is extremely important for us to solve the waste issue in US, for example, and to really try to keep and use less natural resources in our packaging materials. So this is, we think this is the right way moving forward, and this is really the core of our circular packaging.